Hi everyone, this is Dr. Nitin Chhoda and welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about how Americans can get 10 more $1,400 stimulus checks. Yes, you heard that right. And I think you're going to find this video pretty unbelievable. This channel, the Ignition Time channel, is about the country, the economy, as well as your money. So the big question is, how can we get 10 more stimulus checks of $1,400 each? The math is very simple because at the end of the day, this is all about numbers. So let's start with some simple facts. The wealthiest 1% of our fellow Americans, the richest amongst us, saw their wealth increase by $4 trillion in 1 year in 2022. Yes, you heard that right. The wealthiest among us saw their wealth increase by $4 trillion in the year 2020. So in 1 year, that was their wealth increase. Now, what does this have to do with the $1,400 stimulus checks? It's pretty simple. $400 billion out of the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan was set aside for $1,400 stimulus checks to 85% of American households. So now let's do the math. If you have $400 billion that's set aside for $1,400 stimulus checks for 85% of American households, what if you simply multiplied that number by 10? $400 billion times 10 is $4 trillion. Yes, $400 billion times 10 is $4 trillion. Enough money to send 85% of our fellow Americans $1,400 stimulus checks 10 times over, including adult dependents. Just think about this for a second. Now, this was the wealth increase for the richest 1% among us in 2020. It's not even their total wealth. It was the wealth increase for the richest among us in 2020 as a direct result of the pandemic. Think about this for a second. In a year where more than 500,000 of our fellow Americans died, in a year where individuals in travel, leisure, entertainment, and hospitality lost their jobs, in many cases permanently, in a year where 40 million Americans were on unemployment at one point or another, in a year where pretty much the entire global economy shut down, the wealthiest 1% of our fellow Americans saw their wealth increase by $4 trillion. The rich got richer by $4 trillion in 2020. So let's break this down one more time. The cost of sending $1,400 stimulus checks to 85% of American households, $400 billion. We multiply that by 10, we get $4 trillion. Again, this was a wealth increase of the richest 1% in America. This would be enough to send stimulus checks, $1,400 stimulus checks, 10 times over. And this is exactly what President Biden wants to do. President Biden wants to raise taxes for the wealthiest amongst us, individuals earning more than $400,000. He wants to raise corporate income taxes for large corporations who are currently paying 21%, he wants to raise it up to 28%. Here's the headline of an article on your screen from Fox Business. President Biden wants to raise taxes on wealthy Americans who got richer during the pandemic. The wealthiest 1% of US households saw their collective fortune grow by more than $4 trillion in 1 year during the pandemic. In fact, according to Heather Bauschy, who's a member of the White House Council on Economic Advisors, she said that 2020 had taught President Biden, a lot of things about how unfair the pandemic was and how unfair the economic recovery was. Heather told Bloomberg News that 2020 really did show President Biden that there were so many of the fragilities across society that need to be addressed. She said that this was fundamentally an unfair economic recovery, while individuals in travel, leisure, entertainment, and hospitality saw their jobs wiped, saw their jobs disappear permanently, saw their entire industries, saw small businesses completely decimated. At the same time, 1% of the wealthiest amongst us saw their net worth increase by $4 trillion, in large part because of the increase in prices in the stock market, because of the increase in property values. The wealthy own more property, the wealthy have more stocks. As a result, they saw their wealth increase. In contrast, the bottom 50% of our fellow Americans saw their wealth increase by just $470 billion compared to the $4 trillion. So in other words, they saw approximately 1/10 of the wealth increase, the bottom 50%, compared to the top 1%. In fact, let's show you this chart on your screen from the Federal Reserve. This is data from the Federal Reserve over the years that shows you the top 1%, their wealth essentially continued to increase over the years. And let's go to the right side of this chart and you'll see what happened in 2020. The richest got significantly richer, whereas the poor were simply left behind. 80% of job losses last year, in fact, impacted the bottom 25% of income earners. Women were impacted more than men. African Americans and Hispanics were impacted more than white individuals. It was an unfair economic recovery where certain sectors were decimated while other sectors had almost no impact. And what's even more ironic is that the top income earners not only had more jobs, there was more demand for them, but they actually saw their salaries increase because there was more demand for individuals who could work from home, who could work remotely. Whereas individuals, again, in travel, leisure, entertainment, and hospitality, in many cases, individuals who had had jobs for decades saw their positions essentially gone permanently because their industries were shut down, which, by the way, is one reason why states like Nevada, why states like Florida had a big hit in their state revenues, because there was absolutely no tourism. And these were the individuals who were more dependent on unemployment. And speaking of unemployment, on a final note, here's the headline of an article from Fox Business. Pandemic unemployment benefits fraud could top $200 billion. Now, lawmakers have committed a total of almost $500 billion, $486 billion to be exact, in unemployment benefits. And it's quite possible that $200 billion could be lost by way of fraud because of scam artists getting hold of individuals' social security numbers and not only stealing their identity, but also, get this, also applying for unemployment benefits in their name. So individuals were notified that they were on unemployment benefits for benefits that they never filed for and had never received, because there were individuals applying using their name, setting up fake bank accounts, in some cases in different states. Such is the seriousness of the problem, and that is how rampant the problem of unemployment benefits fraud is. This is so ironic that on the one hand, we are talking about the wealthiest 1% seeing their net worth increase by $4 trillion, and we are talking of the most vulnerable amongst us who need the unemployment benefits, who need the system to help them at a time when they need it the most, and then you have scam artists stepping in to steal their money while the rich continue to get richer, and the rich could care less about unemployment benefits. So that's where things stand, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think about the rich getting richer and the fact that the wealth increase of the rich in 2020 could alone pay for $1,400 stimulus checks 10 times over, while we have a fundamentally imbalanced economy, while we have a fundamentally unfair recovery where the most vulnerable amongst us who are dependent on unemployment benefits are now falling victim to scam artists, so much so that the US Department of Labor had to launch a new website in order to be able to combat these unemployment benefits. On your screen, you'll see the new website from the US Department of Labor. You'll see that they've essentially issued a lot of guidance. And as we scroll down that web page, you'll see that they are providing links to different states, so you can contact different states in case you've become a victim of unemployment benefits fraud. While the poor try to chase unemployment benefits and fall victim to fraud, the rich are essentially sitting back and enjoying more money than ever before. This is the unfair nature of our economic recovery. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Dr. Nitin Chhoda with Ignition Time. This channel, the Ignition Time channel, is about the country, the economy, as well as your money. Please do me a favor. Please click the like button. Please subscribe. Please enable notifications. That would mean a lot to me. That really helps out the YouTube algorithm. I work hard every single day to bring you the latest news, and all I ask of you is just take 1 second of your time to click the like button, to subscribe, and to enable notifications so you can get instant alerts before anyone else. Also, follow me on Twitter. This is my Twitter feed. Our Twitter community is growing very rapidly, and you'll be able to follow along the news with me in real time. So as soon as I see a story, you will also see the same story, and we can follow along and we can essentially interact on Twitter, which is why our Twitter community again is growing so rapidly. Once again, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. Please click the like button, please subscribe, please enable notifications, and you'll get a link to all of our resources, all the data that we quoted in this article, as well as the data from the Federal Reserve in the description section below. Thank you so much for watching. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye.